a lot of those earliest recordings, the recordings that we love, were made around one microphone. And in some cases, they wouldn't have been better made another way. So it's where it all started, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's, better or worse. It was just, at that time, that was all you could do.
Right.
Now it's still a pretty good choice.
For David Rawlings, the old ways aren't always better, but a lot of the time they work pretty well. Maybe that's why he and his band like to work around a single microphone, or why he plays a guitar that was made in 1935. Dave's been working with other musicians for a decade and a half, and now for the first time, he's released an album where he's the front man. It's called A Friend of a Friend, and as you might guess from the title, Dave's not alone on the album. We'll talk with Dave Rawlings and friends and hear a few live songs from that album today on Words and Music from Studio A. It's the Dave Rawlings Machine. Hi, I'm Rita Houston. For about the last 15 years, David Rawlings has been the guy in the background on recordings by a lot of artists. Bright Eyes, Old Crow Medicine Show, Ryan Adams, Robin Hitchcock, and of course, his longtime musical partner, Gillian Welch. He's a producer, a singer, and a great guitar player. But until late last year, Dave Rawlings was never a frontman. That's when Dave released his first record in his own name, the Dave Rawlings Machine album, A Friend of a Friend. The new disc is a natural continuation of Dave's past work with Gillian, and that's no big surprise since Gillian's part of the Machine and co-wrote several songs on the album. And she's not the only one from Dave's usual gang to make an appearance on the album. Along with Dave's signature guitar sounds, record also features members of Old Crow Medicine Show and Bright Eyes. And the Heartbreakers' Ben Montench is in there too on piano. So even though Dave is fronting the group on this one, it's still very much a collaboration among friends. I had the chance to talk with Dave Rawlings and friends in Studio A and listen in on a few live performances of their new songs. We'll get to our session, but let's start off with a track from the album, A Friend of a Friend. This one is called Sweet Tooth. Dave Rawlings Machine here on FUV.
Sweet tooth, crying shame. The sweet tooth, crying shame. The sweet tooth, crying shame. Gotta feed the sweet tooth 10 times a day just to hear the wind blowing on a windy day. Cairo, it's a mean old town. Cairo, mean old town. Cairo, mean old town. That's what my Uncle John told me when the sweet tooth got him down. And it's a slow ride on the Santa Fe. It's a slow ride on the Santa Fe. It's a slow ride on the Santa Fe. Crawling like a bear underneath the chair, looking for the sweet tooth. And there's a poor little bean in the dining car. There's a poor little bean in the dining car. There's a poor little bean in the dining car. Said it's so hard to wait sitting on a plate. I wish I was a candy bar. Said little brother to Sister Sue. Said little brother to Sister Sue. Said little brother to Sister Sue. Oh, I got a sweet tooth for the tooth fairy, and I'm working on a cavity. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I wanna be a honey, but I got a sweet tooth. I asked you once, I wanna ask you twice. Come and be my sugar daddy, I'll treat you nice. Said the lily bird to the honeybee. Said the lily bird to thing in this dog almighty world if you're giving to your sweet tooth. Said the soothsayer to the candy cane. Said the soothsayer to the candy cane. Said the soothsayer to the candy cane. Oh, honey, let me try you one more time. I'll tell you it tastes the same. When I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. I'm going to the doctor, gonna pull my sweet tooth. But science said, go Sunday, and there's nothing left to do but pray. Oh, come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Oh, won't you come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Come on, give me some of that Novocaine. Keep the sugar coming through a candy straw. I don't want to feel the pain. Tooth on the string, string on the knob. Tooth on the string, string on the knob. Tooth on the string, string on the knob. That well water better make me well, 'cause my sweet tooth's hurting like a ringing bell. And there's an angel in the attic, sugar on top. There's an angel in the attic, sugar on top. Oh, pretty please, sugar on top. Well, when I die, sweet tooth in hand, I'm begging Peter, send me to the candy land. I'll meet the king of candy at 1:45. 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 He's seen my sweet tooth by and by, and he said they got something gonna satisfy. Sheep's in the meadow, wolf's in the house. Sheep's in the middle, wolf's in the house. Sheep's in the middle, wolf's in the house. The candy's in the hand of the candy man, and the sweet tooth's in my mouth.
Dave Rawlings Machine with us here at 90.7 FM WFUV. Mama, give me some of that Novocaine. That one's called Sweet Tooth. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
The machine is in the house.
Yeah, we made it all the way up here. Yankees game and all.
A Friend of a Friend is the debut album from Dave Rawlings Machine. Of course, many of you guys know this guy from seeing him on stage for so many years. Dave, who all do you have with you here?
Well, I'm standing here in the FUV studios beside the lovely and talented Gillian Welch from the band Gillian Welch. Mr. Ketch Secor strumming his fiddle and probably blow some harmonica. And Morgan Janig on bass. They're both moonlighting from their regular assignment with the Old Crow Medicine Show.
Moonlighting.
And then over here we have the machine's newest cog, filling in for Willie Watson, who from Old Crow Medicine Show, who's actually out in California awaiting the imminent arrival of his new son or daughter.
Oh.
We have the lovely and talented Mr. Gabe Witcher.
How about that, folks?
Yes, of Punch Brothers fame.
Nice.
So we've got a pretty good crew here. It's a motley string band we've assembled.
Dave Rawlings Machine live on the radio with us. What do you want to play for us, guys?
I think we'll start out with a song that starts the record. This is called Ruby.
Ruby, let down your golden hair where I'm standing at the bottom of your stairs. Ruby, well, I can see your TV on, but the people there, they flicker and they're gone. So let down down your golden hair for me tonight. Let down your golden hair for me to climb. Just like an old-time telegraph man. Well, I came here with a simple job to do, 'cause that news coming down the wire says that your head's on fire, and I'm trying to get a message through to you. Oh, Ruby, well, you ain't lonely yet with your crystal and your Russian cigarette. Ruby, well, haven't you heard before what good's the finest towel when it hasn't got a door? So let down your golden hair for me to climb. Let down your golden hair for me tonight. Just like an old-time telegraph man. Well, I came here with a simple job to do, 'cause that news coming down the wire said that your bed's on fire, and I'm trying to get a message through to you. Oh, Ruby. I'm that old-time telegraph man, and I came here with a simple job to do, 'cause that news coming down the wire says that your wheel's on fire, and I'm trying to get a message through to you. I'm that old-time telegraph man, and I came here with a simple job to do, 'cause that news coming down the wire said that your world's on fire, and I'm trying to get a message through to you.
Sounds great, you guys. Pretty darn good. Dave Rawlings Machine live on the radio with us here at FUV. Great stuff. Thanks.
Well, thanks for having us.
And for all you gearheads out there, they're doing this all standing around a single SM57 mic.
It's a good mic.
Dave, let me tell you something. We get bands coming through here, and most of them are simply not good enough to simply stand around one Shure SM57 mic.
Well, you know, I don't know. Maybe they're not good enough not to stand around one. I feel like this thing's helping us out.
But isn't it crazy? Like that's just like a regular. That's like a regular old microphone. Like it's.
Yeah, well, it's if you can stand around something like that and make it blend in the air, it's in a way it's kind of easier. I mean, it's a real thrill. We love playing this way and playing. When we do the shows, we've only been able to do a couple shows where we've been in a room that was sort of small enough that we could. I mean, we might be able to get away with this in a bigger room, but it's a little claustrophobic to do for 2 hours because everybody's sort of. The fiddle bow is sort of in my ear. I gotta keep getting my hat knocked off.
Good thing you've got your fiddle bow
eye
protection.
Yes, exactly. But in situations like this, it's just wonderful because you couldn't be closer to the musicians you're playing with, and you feel sort of right in the middle of it all. It's not like it's blowing at you from a speaker at your feet. It's just you're in the middle of it.
And certainly there's something old-fashioned about that approach.
I suppose so. I mean, I guess, everybody did it back in the day because for a long time, that was the only way to do it, before there was even stereo or mono or something. I mean, a lot of those earliest recordings, the recordings that we love, were made around one microphone. And in some cases, they wouldn't have been better made another way. So it's where it all started, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better or worse. It was just at that time that was all you could do.
Right.
Now it's still a pretty good choice.
No, it is, and like I said, a lot of bands roll through here, and very few take that approach.
Yeah, we're pretty great.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at
that's
there.
Nice of you to say. I would never say that.
A Friend of a Friend is the title of the debut album from the Dave Rawlings Machine, and yes, indeed, they are pretty great. But there's something about getting into the nuances and the subtleties that I think sometimes can be lost in music with everybody just like, let's turn it up to 11.
Oh, well, I've always been confused, and even in the world of, when you're standing on stage, and a lot of times you have monitors at your feet. Gillian and I sometimes don't play with monitors, but if you have them, you'll be talking to a sound guy or the guy, and he'll be like, well, basically, if you don't tell them anything, they'll just put a ton of you in your monitor. And it's like, I'm the only one that I know what I am playing. It's like everyone else I'm playing with I can't hear. It's like, why are you giving me a speaker playing like what I'm doing? It's the only thing I actually have an idea about. So
yeah, but
the whole thing's kind of odd.
It is kind of odd, and it does kind of point to the ego ride that
I guess
a possible ego ride that if I were on stage, I'd want a whole lot of me coming back at me. It's kind of cool.
Well, I guess so. I mean, you can tell my lust for power and glory has been started at a really young age. What is this, my 10th record? And
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the technology when you made the record, because the CD is just so cool. Sound and great collection of songs. Are you, Dave, are you kind of a gearhead? Are you really into all the knobs and buttons and all that jazz?
I didn't start out that way, but from the time when we made Gillian's first record and we're working with T-Bone, I guess I have a lot of sort of engineering in my family, so that stuff came pretty easily to me. Mm-hmm. Just I understood it when I would see it. So, since I've produced a few of Gil's records, I know my way around that stuff and have opinions about what I like. And for instance, part of the reason we're singing around one microphone here is because on the record, the stuff that we did with the vocal ensemble, with the Crows and with Nate Walcott and Benmont, I set up microphones for everybody on the first day that we came in, and we sort of started singing. I think Ruby might have been one of the first things we tried, and I listened to about maybe 4 seconds of it. Of our first little half pass of it. I don't think we played the whole song. I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. And then we stood in a little square. I stood across from Willie, and Gil was on my side, and we rehearsed Ruby for a second. As soon as we were standing in a little square there, facing each other, I could tell it was happening in the air, that it sounded really nice. And so we ended up dropping a sort of an omnidirectional microphone in the middle to capture all 4 vocals and get a lot of the instruments, and that became the center of the recordings, was just that one vocal mic. So yeah, making a decision like that, I suppose that's sort of engineering thing, but it affected the whole record, because then, there we all were facing each other and, doing it all live. Obviously, there's no real way to fix anyone or anything. It's all going in one place, but it's a nice way to do it.
How long did it take you to make the record?
I feel like we were probably in the. We didn't have that many days with the Crows and whatnot. It probably happened over the course of maybe a month or maybe 5 weeks, but certainly not every day. There's probably a week in the studio with those guys, and then, there were maybe 2 or 3 days of me deciding that I might try to record I Hear Them All as a solo thing, and being in despair trying to do that until it actually happened. But,
And you did it in Nashville?
Did it in Nashville, yeah. We did a lot of it at the old RCA Studio B, historic.
That's like a classic room.
It's an amazing room.
Who worked in there?
Well, certainly the Everly Brothers and Elvis Presley and Jim Reeves, and so much of that. All the RCA acts, from the 50s and 60s made records there. It's an incredible room. Roy Orbison.
I got to go into Electric Lady in New York once,
lovely.
And you just stand in the room and, you do feel something. I don't know what you feel, and it's hard to talk about without sounding like a weirdo or something.
Right.
But is it a similar thing? As a musician, I imagine you might even feel it on a different level.
It's crazy. I'll tell you a couple, maybe 2 quick stories about working in B. When we first worked in RCA B was when the Country Music Hall of Fame, which owned the studio, they were running tours through it, which they still do, but they were building a new Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, which they got built, and which is a wonderful facility. But all their energies were sort of there round about 2000. And they didn't really have time to do much with Studio B. So we had a friend who knew about this and was on the foundation. And we asked, well, could Gillian and I maybe rent that studio while you guys are, you can still run tours in the day and then we'll work in the evenings. And they said, sure. There wasn't any equipment, so we moved all our studio equipment in, and that's when we made Gillian's Time the Revelator record in that time period. But as I was laying all the cables out and putting things through the troughs, in the control room, there's these, it's sort of a raised floor, and then there's these troughs that the cables run in. I'm pulling these old troughs off that are covered with that old sort of asbestos, linoleum tiles, and in the troughs I see some rhinestones. Which, there's some old Nashville country music history right there. Who's in the control room in Studio B in 1962 with rhinestones on their clothes that are falling off and getting down in the troughs? And in fact, if you look at the cover of that record, I don't know if the cover of Gillian's Time the Revelator record, she's sitting on this odd sort of red, white, and blue checked couch. And that couch had been in there since the 60s. When you're sitting on that couch, you're sitting where Elvis sat.
Right.
It's the only place to sit.
Probably Elvis napped.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Might have had a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Who knows?
The place where Elvis napped. That's good.
Well, should we give you another number here?
We shall. Dave Rawlings Machine, live in the studios with us here at WFUV.
All right. This is one called I Hear Them All. I hear the crying of the hungry in the deserts where they're wandering. Hear them crying out for heaven's own benevolence upon them. Hear destructive power prevail. I hear fools falsely hail to the crooked wits of tyrants when they call. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear the sound of tearing pages and the roar of burning paper.
All the crimes and acquisition turned to air and ash and vapor, and the rattle of the shackled far beyond emancipators, and the lowliest who gather in their stalls. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. So while you sit and whistle Dixie with your money and your power, I can hear the flowers growing in the rubble of the towers. I hear leaders quit their lying, I hear babies quit their crying, I hear soldiers quit their dying, one and all. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear the tenderest word from Zion, I hear Noah's waterfall. See the gentle Lamb of Judah sleeping at the feet of Buddha, and the prophets from Elijah to the old Paiute Wavaka take their places at the table when they're called. And I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. Well, this land was made for you and me. Followed my footsteps of the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking, I saw a sign there that on the one side said no trespassing, but when I looked on the other side, it didn't say nothing. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them
all. That's good, you guys. Thank you. Great stuff. Dave Rawlings Machine live on the radio with us here. And such a great song, too.
Well, you know, that's a song that Ketch and I wrote a few years ago that was on Old Crow Medicine Show's second record, Big Iron World, except for the real good part in the middle, which we didn't write.
But it fits right in there.
Well, that's good.
And at the, you know, when I saw you guys play at Bowery Ballroom, it's just like, I mean, it's undeniable because it really seals what the original song is also saying, too, and, you know.
Well, that's great. I mean, that was something that sort of popped into my head one day when we were playing it live, and we just sort of went ahead and did it, and people seem to like it, and it's it's nice to hear. I guess in a way, it wasn't until we started singing a little bit of This Land Is Your Land in that, and I started thinking about it. Sort of helped me, or I started to hear the words to that song a little differently, which is nice. It's nice to hear, something that you've known your whole life, to sort of feel it freshly.
Sure. And when you and Ketch wrote it, did you share the lyrics and stuff? Was that a joint, pretty much a joint venture?
I feel like it was. I mean, do you? I remember that. I mean, that song was around for a while. We worked on that for a long time. Why don't you say something about it, Ketch?
Well, I was Rita. It was a song that Dave and I worked up, and it had that kind of anthemic refrain, and kind of wanted it to be a song for everybody in that same way that probably Woody must have felt about so many of his songs.
Yeah. But lyrically, it's so rich, man. It's just like great. You make a lot of good connections there.
I wrote that part about the ashes and the rubble for New York.
Got it. That's good. A Friend of a Friend is the title of the debut album from Dave Rawlings' Machine, and we're psyched to have these guys in studio here at 90.7 FM WFUV. Dave, just a quick word or two about your guitar.
My
because
guitar.
That is a beauty, and I got a funny feeling it's not new.
No. This guitar, I found this guitar in a friend of mine's basement. While we were I was in Concord, Massachusetts, actually, and a buddy of mine had, I guess a friend of his had bought it at a yard sale maybe 20 years before, and he'd gotten it from that friend, and it had sat there sort of unplayed and without a bridge or strings on it for years and years, but I picked it up and sort of knocked on the back and thought it sounded pretty good. Sometimes you can tell a little bit about an instrument that way. It had a kind of clear little bell-like tone, so I thought, well, I should get that thing fixed up and try to hear it. But it was made actually not too far from here in Long Island City, Queens, which is where the Epiphone company was at that time. Actually, it's really great if you look in the F-hole right here, because it's an archtop guitar, sort of shaped, has a little bit like a violin top. The top has a curve to it, and then it has two little F-holes in the side. And if you look down through this F-hole, you can see an old yellowed label here in the serial number, but it was actually made by Epiphone Banjo Corporation.
Wow.
So good to know that in 1935 we had such things as banjo corporations. We're doing very corporate banjo things. We don't know exactly what those things were. But in the 30s you needed a corporation because that's how important the banjo was. But this model was called an Olympic, and it was the cheapest thing they made in 1935. I think it cost $35.
Wow.
But very nicely made instrument, even though it was the bottom of the line. It's got a carved spruce top, and it's got a wonderful sort of mid-rangey tone. I've been really lucky to play it.
And I feel like I always see you play it.
Yeah,
Is that your primary?
Yeah, I started, strangely, I got this thing repaired just in time for the first day of the first sessions for Gillian's first record. So pretty much, it's the first, I didn't even know how to play the thing. I'd worked out a lot of parts on my older guitar. And then as soon as I heard this thing through speakers, I went into the control room after we'd tried a bunch of different guitars to figure out what we were going to make the record on. I was just nuts about it. So, I'm kind of glad that first record is a little bit of I can hear myself trying to figure out what to do on it.
Give us a little backstory on your musical, what your road was. Were you I'm just picturing were you in cover bands doing Journey tunes, or
no?
What was your path?
Well, when I was real young, I mean, I know that I didn't start playing guitar until I was 16, so I had sort of a pretty long musical life before that didn't involve the guitar, that just involved loving music and songs. And when I was real young, I just liked story songs and folk songs where I'd hear them here and there on the radio. It was sort of harder pre-internet to find stuff deeply, but I'd hear a certain kind of song, like maybe a Jim Croce song, or like The Gambler by Kenny Rogers, or something that had a story to it, and they would stick in my head. So I knew I liked that. And then roundabout when I was maybe 13 or 14, my father actually called me, and one summer we were up at this little cabin on a lake, and he's like, "Dave, you got to come here and hear this song with all these words." And I ran in the house, and and it was Subterranean Homesick Blues, which is the first time I ever heard a Bob Dylan song. And my dad, I guess, when he was young, you know, in the early '60s, he'd been a Dylan fan. So so then I bought him Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits and promptly stole it maybe a day or two later. And you know, I got into that stuff, and Bob Dylan and Neil Young and a lot of that older sort of folk stuff was old music at the time, but I liked it quite a bit more than what was out, you know? Right. So I started playing through that. I discovered country and started playing in some country bands along with sort of more modern stuff at the time, sort of alternative, sort of punky stuff with my friends. Mm-hmm. And gradually, you know, found my way back to bluegrass and old time by the time about I got up to Berklee College of Music, and then fell in with that small, tight-knit clan of the 8 or 9 people at that entire school who liked that stuff, which is where I met Gillian, and we started playing together.
Oh, you guys met at Berklee? I don't know if I ever knew that part of the story.
Yeah, that's where we met. We didn't
so
start
you
playing
must have been like,
then.
hallelujah, I found somebody.
Yeah, oh, well,
besides all the rest of it.
Yeah, well, it was amazing, you know. We had a great friend named Porter McClister, who was from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, was a great banjo player and guitar player, and there was just a group of us, you know, and when you're passionate about a certain kind of music, was really nice to have other people to play it with.
Yeah, you feel like, wow, I'm not,
right.
You're like, I found somebody.
Well, and then finding sort of records and old music at that time, you know, discovering like Townes Van Zandt or Steve Earle or Emmylou, just a lot of these people, John Prine, Guy Clark, all those people moved to Nashville or lived in Nashville, which is why after school, that combined with the fact that they had us, there was like a Berklee trip to Nashville that happened that both Gillian and I went on with a bunch of other people, sort of saw the town. That's what led me to Nashville. And that's when we started playing together.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
and when did you start writing songs, Dave? When was that? When did that?
I would have probably had to write a song at school, but when I realized that they were going to make me write a song for songwriting class, I dropped out of the class because I was too shy. It's just too much pressure. But I mean, I think I always had little things popping in my head, but it wasn't until I started working with Gillian that I really started developing that. And you know, we would work together on stuff that she was writing. And then gradually over the years, I started sort of writing stuff myself. So,
and To Be Young, To Be Sad, I believe, is next up on our set list.
Yes.
You did that one with Ryan Adams.
Yeah, wrote that song with Ryan Adams, yes.
And that's got to be a few years ago by now.
Yeah, it's probably almost 10 years.
10, yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny thing. Ryan was living in Nashville and would come over to the house and we'd play music and jam. And there'd be little parties at the house. And at one of those nights, we were sitting in the living room banging something around, and I thought we were playing Prodigal Son by the Stones. You know, I thought and then I realized, wait, those aren't the words, because Ryan was just singing something. And then we maybe, I don't know, wrote a little bit of that chorusy part, and we're just playing it around and then forgot all about it. Or Ryan truly forgot all about it, because 2 days later I was like, we should finish that song we were working on. Because, you know, someone else came in the room or something. He was like, what song? So I played it for him as best I could remember it. And we maybe wrote the third part, the sort of third part of the song, and that was that. Went and recorded for Heartbreaker.
And it's one of those things, too, if a mark of a great song is that it can handle a bunch of different treatments, then this one definitely holds up to that, because your version is so totally different from his.
I tried to sort of give it, like I said, the country honk version of it, you know?
Country honk, nice.
Because I loved his version of it, and I knew I didn't want to do it in the same way, because I thought he'd covered that very well.
Here we go with the Dave Rawlings Machine live on the radio on FUV.
All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Young boy, done your bed, I went and did you wrong. Young boy, done your bed, I went and did you wrong, and I got high. Oh Lord, I got high, and I got a bone to pick with you, and I hope you know it's true. Oh, someday when you're looking back, you were young and man, you were sad. When you're young, you get sad. When you're young, you get sad. You get high.
me bad, you went and did me wrong. Young girl, you done me bad, you went and did me wrong, and I got high, high, high. Oh Lord, I got high, and you got a bone to pick with me, but I wish you'd let it be. Oh, someday when you're looking back, you were young and man, you were sad. When you're young, you get sad. When you're young, you get sad. You get high. You get high. Ooh, the days the rain would fall your way. Ooh, the days the rain would fall your way, and you'd be high, 'cause you got sad, 'cause you got sad, 'cause you got high, 'cause you got high. Oh man! Oh man! Oh man, 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 man. Oh man, 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 man. Oh man.
Come on, you guys. That's great. I actually forgot you were playing a banjo when my eyes were closed because it was so... That was something. That was very good.
It's good if when you're playing a banjo, if you can make people forget.
Dave Rawlings Machine with us here at 90.7 FM WFUV. Great performance. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thanks so much for having us, Rita.
That
We
is
love being
good.
here.
That is good stuff, man. So before we set you free, let's talk music for a minute. You know, I got for the first time seeing you guys last night, I was feeling, and maybe it was me, a little Grateful Dead thing. And I thought to myself, did Dave ever have a Grateful Dead thing in his life? Did you ever have like a dead? Did you ever have a Dead phase? Did you ever dabble in the?
It's
not
dabble in the
word.
dabble in the arcane arts of the dead.
Yes.
That's funny. You know, I was aware of the Grateful Dead back in the day, and I did like some of the songs. And I knew American Beauty. I knew a couple of their records that people cite as great records, and they are great records. But strangely, I had maybe a Deadhead roommate in college, and he had some live shows, but maybe not the right one. So I never went all the way down that tunnel. Mm-hmm. And but strangely, I'm in a little bit of the Grateful Dead tunnel right now because
interesting.
Thanks to a rival type of radio that you can get anywhere in the country in your car, there's actually an all Grateful Dead station, and so I've been listening to quite a few live shows recently, you know, listening to some of the great stuff from the early 70s and some from the mid and late 70s. I think 77's a pretty good year. And I've been sort of more invested lately, so it's not surprising that it's maybe coming out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to play too much like Jerry, but boy, he played great.
Yeah, he sure did. You know, I mean, I was never like a big Deadhead, but of course a huge appreciator and all that, and have always had like friends who were, but I don't know what it was about last night, but someone hit me. I just
It's
thought,
funny because I don't think we even played any songs, but it might be seeping in there. I mean, the catalog is just terrific too. When you start hearing those shows and really hearing how many good tunes they had, I'm definitely guilty. I confess.
hey, we're gonna let you play DJ now.
Well, you know, we were talking about sort of those early days before I played guitar and when I was hearing music that sort of affected me, and I couldn't, I should have mentioned sort of what kind of profound effect hearing Neil's version of Cortez the Killer had on my musical brain. So a little boy lying on the carpet, looking at the winter sun coming in through the window and listening to 4 minutes of intro or however long it is before he sings a note. So why don't you let the listeners enjoy some 70s Cortez the Killer.
And here it is with our thanks to Dave Rawlings Machine.
Like the leaves around the tree. together, and they lifted many stones, and they carried them to the flatlands, but they died along the way, and they built up with their bare hands what we still can't do today. And I know she's living there, and she loves me to this day. I still can't remember when or how I lost my way. We came dancing across the water, Cortez, Cortez, what a killer.
Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Cortez the Killer. The guest DJ pick from Dave Rawlings Machine. The Dave Rawlings Machine debut album is out now. It's called A Friend of a Friend. Jeremy Rayner engineered our session, and words and music from Studio A was produced today by Nora Flaherty. Visit our archives at WFUV.org to hear this program and more exclusive conversations and performances. Thanks for listening. I'm Rita Houston for WFUV in New York.